Now, New Zealand's general election is fast approaching, coming up next Saturday, the 14th of October, with advanced voting having opened. With politics, it can be so polarising, can't it? Many of us have strong opposing views, and that's the benefit of living in a democracy, that we can own our opinions and convictions and vote at the polling booth accordingly. But with those strong feelings and those convictions, how do we keep our heads in an election and keep the main thing the main thing? Thomas Wynne now joins me on the show to talk to this topic, and Thomas's career has spanned many years in education, counselling, social justice, governance and communications, both here in Aotearoa and in the Pacific. Thomas now joins us via Zoom. Kia ora, good morning, Thomas. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Kia ora, nice to see you. Nice to share space with you.
Yeah. Now tell me, what are the different roles that you've held in politics, both here in New Zealand and in the Cook Islands?
I was a communications advisor to the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, 2016 to 2019. And then I came over to New Zealand to work in the Labour Leader's Office from 2020 to 2022, just before COVID hit. Actually, I came in February and then COVID hit in March. And then I worked in the Minister's Office, the Minister for Pacific People, for 12 months, and then he resigned. I moved to Meka Whaitiri's office, and I was working there as well. And I left in April, went home to the Cook Islands for 3 months.
Yep. And back again here to Wellington. So, Thomas, you've had a really diverse career. Was it always something that was on your radar?
Yeah, I think I do remember in Form 3, the teacher asking us, or Year 9, what did you want to be when you grew up? And my answer to that was I wanted to be a politician. And the reason for that was simply my family were all in the Watersiders Union, all migrant workers, but joined the union. And significantly, when my grandmother's second husband passed away, Norman Kirk presented her with a Bible and inscribed it. And I'm now the caretaker of that Bible. And, I guess I have a sense of responsibility there and passing on the baton. Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat.
Definitely. Yeah. My uncle was also one of the founding members of the Polynesian Panthers. So, we've had sort of social justice, equity, politics surrounding us for most of my life.
Yeah, for sure. I went to Parliament once down in Wellington many years ago, like a tourist really, when they take you behind the scenes, and it was probably about 10 years ago, I think, on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I was really fascinated. I just found it so interesting. But I'm interested to know, what's it like to work in terms of workplace culture, in terms of when the cameras are off? I know they can interview people in the hallways, and then you guys go about your business, and you're in your different parties and one thing and another. What is it actually like as a workplace?
Wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed it. It was everything I thought it would be and more. It's consuming. That's a definite. You definitely don't want to go in there with anything else that you need to be doing at the same time, because it will consume you 7 days a week. But I think if you want to understand better how the mechanism of government works, and how you can influence it, or how influence happens, great place to work. Absolutely fabulous. I had no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah.
Working there and seeing what I saw.
Yeah. And so in terms of, different parties, people with different views, how does everyone get on when the cameras and things aren't there?
Yeah, good. I can only speak for myself. I think if you take I think for us as faith-based people, we have the opportunity to see people as Christ sees people, and I see people as people. And the politics is like second or third in that whole priority list. And so I would happily sit at the table with my cousin, who's an MP for the Greens, for friends of mine that work for National, for people that work for New Zealand First that were faith-based also, and other parties. So it can be relevant if you want it to be, or it can be irrelevant if that's what you choose. And I chose for it to be irrelevant. when it came to how we engage with people.
Yeah, because we're a person first, right? Before our politics, we're actually a child of God.
Well, yeah, we agree to that, but that doesn't always happen, unfortunately.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my colleagues here, he did a whole bunch of interviews with the leaders of the main
I like
parties.
those.
And they were great, and some of the miners. And
Yeah.
he actually just said something similar to you. I said, how was the experience? He said, it was great. Do you know what? I would sit down with any one of those people and have a coffee with them off air. He said,
Yeah.
you just see a person for who they are, a person. And yet, our politics gets very whipped up, and we have very strong opinions, and like, we're allowed to. But I mean, how do we get through this, keeping a cool head, Thomas, and keeping the main thing?
Yeah, good, really, really good question. And I think we're all, well, not all, but I think a lot of us are struggling with that dichotomy at the moment. I was thinking about it over the weekend, and I remembered one time when I was swimming at Maori Bay, just around from Muriwai.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and I got caught in the rip, and there were no lifeguards, and I remember, oh my God, thinking to myself, I could die. I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, don't panic, swim across the waves and get to that sort of safe bit in the middle, and I made it through. But I guess as an analogy or a metaphor to hang this on, I think for me personally, I always endeavour to swim between the flags and not get caught in the current that can take you one way or the other. As enticing as it is to get caught in the rip, I think it's dangerous for us. And there are those that believe that the extremes of that water are where we belong. And yet, but for me personally, I think that within the flags is the safest place for us, because we can then provide guidance to those that are swimming one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I will take a centrist approach, because that's what sits more comfortable for me. And not everybody takes that position. However, I guess I've always maintained this thinking that I will build relationship with people regardless as to what you believe or think, but you will let go of me before I let go of you.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking this coming week, I've got a bunch of friends coming around for a dinner party, potluck dinner, and I'm looking across my friends, even as I'm talking to you, and I'm thinking, we don't actually talk about politics, and I actually really like that. And I think in the room we have very diverse opinions, but I've never felt to put my political opinion on someone else, basically, because I feel like I know such a small percentage, right? I don't feel 100% convinced of anything to do with politics, but what I am convinced of is that I will align myself with what I feel's right with policies and things, and I will make the most of that opportunity to have a voice and to vote. It's just a little bit unfortunate, isn't it, that we sort of can get all het up about it. And as you're saying, there is no need to be like that, is there, Thomas?
Well, I think if we want to maintain relationship with people, which I think is, for me is, and for lots of us is critical, then we need to find a place of comfort where we can hold our values, hold what we believe to be true, and still hold relationship at the same time. And I think that's the challenging bit. It's so easy to take a position and then move yourself to a part of the room, and then we stop having relationship with people. I always, I guess for me, think, how does that then best reflect my faith? And, not in a reductionist way, but what would Jesus do in that situation? How would he build relationship? And if we look at examples through scripture, through the Gospels, be it the woman at the well or people that were blind or affirmed or whatever, from the rich young ruler to the leper, Jesus was able to speak truth into their lives and endeavored to build relationship. I always think of the situation with the rich young ruler, and he says to him, it's easier for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle, speaking about that gate that the camel needed to have all their goods taken off. But he didn't say that to him to stumble him. He said it to him so that it would bridge an opportunity for him to change his heart about how he felt about wealth. So I always think Jesus was about, how do I build relationship into that person's life, where they're at, with what they're thinking, with the things that are important to them right now, and challenge that, but challenge that in such a way that we grow in that situation, not grow apart. And unfortunately, we can allow ourselves to grow apart. And I just think that's the opportunity lost for us.
Yeah. I mean, if you flip that back to, say, your relationships with family, with your husband or wife or your children, right? If you're so intent on that your opinion's right, then your desire to be right can win over a relationship and eradicate a relationship, right? And so if we look at that, having that sort of attitude towards our fellow man, with politics or anything, it's like, it doesn't serve us well, does it, in terms of society working and building and working together? Because at the end of the day, we all want the same things, don't we? We want a roof over our head. We want we don't want people being poor. We want equality. There's a lot of things that we want. Safe families and all those things. But it's just that with politics, it can be divisive. Just in closing, really, I'm thinking about, that scripture that talks about praying for our leaders, and obviously this election result, as any election, some people are going to be happy about it and some aren't. That's just the way it is. But as Christians, I mean, we're still called to pray for our leaders, aren't we? Whether they align with our needs or not.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that broad brushstroke is a good place to land, because we have to find, in ourselves, whether we agree with the politics that the country votes in or not. We have to find a place where in our heart we can actually make that transaction of removing ourselves, removing our thinking, thinking to ourselves, God has asked me to pray for these people. And how do I do that sincerely? And maybe that's the challenge, really, for us all, coming up to as the booths open today, and voting will happen, and it will run its course. On the other side of this election, how do I find myself in a position where I'm able to pray for those people sincerely and in a way that honors God and honors His word? And maybe it's that simple. Maybe that's actually the thing that can bring us all together. As opposed to the many things that could tear us apart.
Thomas Wynne, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
No, appreciate the time. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.